I never believed the stories people tell about babysitting. Most of them sounded exaggerated. Creepy noises, strange phone calls, someone standing outside the window. I always assumed there had to be a normal explanation. Until one Friday night in October. My name is Dylan, and this happened in a quiet neighborhood outside Portland, Oregon, when I was 20 years old. I had been babysitting for extra money while taking community college classes. A couple named Ray and Nicole asked if I could watch their 7-year-old daughter Chloe from 6 until around midnight while they attended a company dinner. The house sat at the end of a dead-end street, surrounded by tall pine trees. It looked peaceful, almost isolated. Before leaving, Ray laughed and said, "Chloe usually falls asleep by 9. Easiest babysitting job you'll ever have." I wished he had been right. Around 8:30, Chloe finished watching cartoons, brushed her teeth, and headed upstairs. As I tucked her in, she looked toward her bedroom window instead of at me. "Can you keep the curtain closed?" I smiled, afraid of the dark. She shook her head. "I'm afraid he'll see me." I laughed softly. "Who's he?" She answered so quietly I almost missed it. "The man who watches from the trees." Kids imagine strange things all the time. I checked outside anyway. Nothing. Just darkness and pine branches moving in the wind. I closed the curtain, told her goodnight, and headed downstairs. By 9:15, the house was completely silent. I sat on the couch, scrolling through my phone when I heard 3 slow knocks. Not on the front door. On the back sliding glass door. Knock, knock, knock. The backyard lights were off, so I couldn't see much. I stepped closer. Nobody. I unlocked the door, just enough to look outside. Cold air rushed in. The backyard was empty. No footprints. No movement. I locked it again. 5 minutes later. Knock, knock, knock. Exactly the same. Slower this time. My stomach tightened. I turned every outdoor light on. Still nothing. I convinced myself branches were hitting the glass. Then my phone buzzed. It was Nicole. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I replied. "Just heard something outside." She answered almost immediately. "Don't go outside. Ray forgot to mention someone has been walking through the neighborhood at night. Police haven't caught him." That wasn't information I wanted at 9:30. I checked every door, every window. Everything was locked. Around 10, I heard footsteps upstairs. I assumed Chloe needed water. Instead, she was standing halfway down the hallway. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring toward the staircase window. "He's closer tonight." A chill crawled up my back. I walked upstairs and looked outside. Nothing. Then I noticed something strange. The outside motion light wasn't turning on. Almost like someone was staying just beyond its range. I brought Chloe back to bed. Before closing her door, she whispered something that made every hair on my arm stand up. "He smiles when people look away." I stayed upstairs longer than I probably should have. Everything remained quiet. Eventually, I returned downstairs. At 10:27, the landline rang. Nobody used landlines anymore. I answered. Silence. Then breathing. Slow. Heavy. Like someone standing inches from the receiver. I hung up. It rang again. This time a man's calm voice said, "Did she tell you about me?" The line disconnected. I froze. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. I immediately called Ray. No answer. Then Nicole. Straight to voicemail. I started dialing 911. Then I heard something above me. A slow, careful footstep. Inside the house. Not upstairs. In the attic. Every instinct told me to grab Chloe and leave. But the only exit was the front door. And whatever or whoever was above us might already be watching it. Another slow step echoed across the ceiling. Then another. The sound stopped directly above the living room. I whispered for Chloe to stay inside her bedroom and lock the door no matter what happened. She nodded without asking questions. That scared me even more. She had heard these noises before. I grabbed the fireplace poker and stood beneath the attic hatch in the hallway. The footsteps stopped. The silence became unbearable. Then a soft scrape, like something heavy was being dragged across wooden boards. I finally dialed 911. The dispatcher answered quietly while I explained everything. She told me officers were already nearby because of recent trespassing reports and would arrive in minutes. Minutes suddenly felt like hours. Then came the sound that still wakes me up. A child's laugh. From the attic. It sounded almost identical to Chloe's. Except Chloe was standing beside me, gripping my sleeve. The laugh continued for several seconds before turning into a low cough. Someone was deliberately trying to imitate her. The dispatcher heard it through my phone. She immediately ordered me to get outside if I could. Just then the backyard motion lights switched on. For the first time that night I saw him. A tall man wearing dark work clothes stood perfectly still near the tree line. He wasn't hiding anymore. He was staring directly through the glass. He slowly lifted one hand and pointed upward, toward the attic. My blood turned cold. Whoever was outside wasn't the person making the noise above us. There were two of them. Before I could react, the attic hatch shook once. Then again, something heavy landed on top of it. The wooden panel bent downward several inches. Chloe screamed. I pulled her toward the front door. The moment I unlocked it, police cruisers turned onto the street. Blue lights flooded the yard. The man outside ran into the woods before officers could reach him. At the same second, a loud crash came from inside. The attic hatch burst open. An officer rushed in, while another stayed with us outside. Within minutes, they searched the entire house. They eventually found a narrow space above the attic insulation. Someone had been living there. Empty food wrappers, water bottles, a flashlight, dirty blankets, and several small holes drilled through the ceiling that looked directly into Chloe's bedroom. The investigators also found fresh footprints leading from a side attic vent to the crawl space. But the person hiding inside escaped before police reached him. Neither suspect was ever identified. Detectives later told Ray and Nicole that someone had likely been entering the attic for weeks through a loose roof vent hidden behind the pine trees. Chloe hadn't imagined the man watching from outside. She'd actually seen him. Months later, Ray called me after contractors replaced the roof. While removing insulation, they found an old disposable camera tucked beneath the boards. The film had been developed by police. Every single picture showed Chloe, sleeping, playing, reading, all taken from inside the house. I never babysat again after that night. Even now, whenever someone tells me they have an easy babysitting job, I remember those slow footsteps above my head and the man outside pointing toward the attic. I never thought babysitting could leave me checking every locked door in my own house years later. My name is Trevor, and this happened when I was 21. I was home from college for the summer in a quiet neighborhood outside Columbus, Ohio. A family a few streets away needed someone to watch their 7-year-old daughter while they attended an overnight business event. They knew my aunt, so I got the job without meeting them beforehand. When I arrived around 6 in the evening, everything seemed normal. The parents, Doug and Karen, were friendly. Their daughter, Piper, barely looked up from her coloring book. Before leaving, Doug walked me around the house. The alarm arms automatically at 10, he said. Don't worry if you hear it beep. Just don't open any outside doors. Karen added something that caught my attention. If Piper tells you someone is outside her bedroom window, don't let it scare you. She laughed awkwardly. She has an active imagination. I smiled. I've babysat kids before. It'll be fine. By 8:30, we'd watched a movie, made grilled cheese sandwiches, and played a board game. Piper seemed quiet but polite. Around 9, I tucked her into bed. As I turned off her light, she grabbed my sleeve. Can you close the curtains tighter? They're already closed. I know. I just don't like him looking in. I smiled. Who's looking in? The man. Kids imagine monsters all the time. I checked outside anyway. Her bedroom overlooked a fenced backyard with a swing set. Nothing. No one's there. She didn't answer. She simply rolled over. I went downstairs. At exactly 10, the security system beeped twice before arming itself. The house became unusually quiet. Too quiet. About half an hour later, I heard 3 slow taps. Tap, tap, tap. They came from somewhere upstairs. I figured Piper was awake. When I checked, she was sitting upright in bed. I heard him again. Heard who? The man outside. I opened the curtains. The backyard was empty. The fence, trees, and swing barely moved in the night breeze. See, she didn't look convinced. You checked the wrong window. I frowned. This is your only window. She slowly pointed toward the closet. No, he knocks from inside there. I laughed under my breath. It's just the house settling. I opened the closet. Clothes. Shoes. Nothing else. Satisfied, I closed it. As I stepped into the hallway, I heard another knock. 3 taps. This time downstairs. I froze. Someone was knocking on the front door. Not pounding. Not ringing the bell. Just 3 calm knocks. I looked through the peephole. Nobody. The porch was empty. Street lights reflected off wet pavement. No cars. No people. Nothing. Then my phone buzzed. It was Doug. Everything okay? Yeah. Has anyone come by? No. A pause. If anyone knocks, don't answer. I wasn't planning to. Another pause. We forgot to tell you our old security cameras sometimes picked up someone standing near the back fence. I laughed nervously. Funny joke. I'm serious. Before I could respond, the call ended. I stared at the phone. No explanation. No follow-up. Nothing. At 11:15, every light in the kitchen suddenly turned off. Only the living room lamp stayed on. The breaker hadn't tripped. The security keypad still glowed beside the door. Then I heard footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Above me. I looked upstairs. Piper's bedroom door remained shut. The footsteps kept moving across the hallway. Back and forth. Back and forth. I whispered, Piper. Silence. Then tap, tap, tap. Not upstairs anymore. Directly behind the basement door. Every instinct told me not to open it. The basement door stood only a few feet away. The tapping came again. 3 slow knocks. Almost patient. I grabbed the fireplace poker from beside the hearth. Piper, I called loudly. No answer. Then I heard her scream upstairs. I ran. She was standing in her bedroom doorway crying. He's walking. What? In the hallway. I switched on every upstairs light. The hallway was empty. Every room was empty. Even the attic access was closed. I searched every closet, every bathroom, every guest room. Nothing. As I returned to Piper's room, she whispered something that made my stomach tighten. He's downstairs now. Almost immediately, I heard the security system chime. One of the sensors had opened. I rushed downstairs expecting the front door to be standing open. It wasn't. Neither was the back door. Every lock was still engaged. But one window over the kitchen sink had been lifted just enough to break the sensor. Only about an inch. Someone had opened it from outside. I slammed it shut and locked it. Then I looked into the backyard. At first, nothing. Then I noticed the swing. It was moving, not from the wind. Back, forward, back, forward. There wasn't enough breeze to move it that way. I grabbed my phone and called 911. The dispatcher told me officers were already on the way. While I stayed on the line, another sound echoed through the house. 3 knocks, this time from the hallway closet beside the stairs. The closet was barely large enough for coats. The dispatcher kept asking if I was okay. I couldn't answer. I stepped closer. The knocking stopped. I slowly opened the closet. Empty. Only jackets hanging motionless. Then Piper shouted from upstairs. He's outside. I sprinted to her room. She pointed toward the backyard. Near the fence stood a man. He wasn't moving. He wasn't trying to hide. He simply stood there staring directly at the house. Even from that distance, I could tell something was wrong. His clothes looked filthy. His face seemed unusually pale. Then, without taking his eyes off us, he slowly raised one hand. 3 fingers. He held them there for several seconds before disappearing behind the trees. The police arrived less than 4 minutes later. They searched the yard, neighboring properties, and nearby woods. No suspect, but they found something else. Fresh footprints. They circled the entire house. Again and again, as if someone had spent hours walking around it. Near Piper's bedroom window, investigators found a small wooden chair placed against the fence. Someone had been standing on it, looking through the tiny gap where the curtains never fully closed. The officer quietly asked Doug if anything like this had happened before. Doug didn't answer right away. Finally, he admitted they'd found footprints around the house several times over the previous 6 months. Security cameras occasionally recorded a tall figure standing near the fence around 3 in the morning. The recordings always ended with static before the figure disappeared. No one was ever identified. The police increased patrols for a few weeks. Nothing else happened. Doug's family moved before winter. I never babysat again. Sometimes I still wake up after hearing 3 quiet knocks in my dreams. The strange part isn't the nightmares. It's that every few months someone anonymously mails me a plain white envelope with no return address. Inside is always the same thing. A photograph of an ordinary house, taken from outside, at night. No message, no fingerprints, just a small handwritten number in the corner. 3.